Welcome to the Inspiring Humans podcast. We are so happy to have you listening. My name is Stephanie Woolard, and this podcast is a platform to showcase the incredible human spirit. On this podcast, I'll be interviewing people from all over the world and all walks of life who will be sharing with us their personal dreams and their dreams for the future. I believe that through coming together and creating community, incredible things are possible. In fact, anything is possible. And I hope that this podcast is a launch pad for creating the new world that we want to see, that will have humanity free, thriving, and living in their full self-expression. So it's my absolute pleasure to be here today with Mick Hawes, and I met Mick Hawes at a conference a while ago, an online conference about podcasting, and he came to mind when I was thinking of amazing people to interview because, Mick, I think you're a real trailblazer and pioneer in what you do. You've been in the building industry for a very long time, and you've obviously seen the trials and tribulations of many people and actually created a whole support system to support builders who want to go out on their own and want to succeed in the industry. So thank you so much. Just another thing that I just wanted to mention was, I met quite a few people during that online podcasting conference, and I just loved your energy and your sense of humor. So that always sticks with me when I meet people that have a sense of humor. And so it's great to have you on the podcast today.
Pleasure.
So I'd love to just kind of get straight into it and ask you to share a bit about your journey in the building industry and how you got into it in the first place.
How I got into it was I didn't have many choices. So I went home on a Friday evening from grade 10 high school, and my dad was a builder. And he said, there's an electrician coming over tonight to give you a job. If you don't take it, you'll be working for me. So that's how I became an electrician, because I didn't want to work with my father. So I became an electrician and became part of the building industry. And then at the end of my electrical apprenticeship, it was a mutual agreed decision that my boss and I thought it probably wasn't my future. So I became a professional musician instead, and was touring all around the country and overseas, and then and then did all sorts of things after that. I woke up one day and thought selling life insurance would be a good idea, so did that for a couple of years, and that got the whole thing started, because it was, whilst you were selling life insurance, I was fortunate enough, and you sort of have these experiences where you bump into people. And in fact, I spoke to this guy yesterday, and he was the sales trainer for this life insurance agency. And I just fell in love with the personal development side of it. Like, they were teaching us sales and all about different policies and what have you, but the mindset stuff and the communication stuff and how to build rapport with people and how to understand from their perspective and all of this that my mentor Ian taught me, and this was 1991 or something, and we're still the absolute best of friends today. We help each other out so much. And he's just one of many, but he was the first one, and without him, I just wouldn't have got started in this direction. And I suppose starting our own business and becoming business coaches, you teach people about how important it is to niche, and you're teaching people about niching, and you don't do it yourself. Like I thought small business was a niche. Like, it's almost like saying, here, take my advice, it's been no use to me. But after a while, my coach, Taki Moore, helped me to understand that I just needed to do it. And I basically went through a process to identify which niche I wanted to work with, and it had to be based on their customers going to them because of a want or a passion rather than a need. Because people ask, why did you choose Builders? And I literally Googled every different type of small, there's a list I found, about 2,400 types of small businesses like butcher, baker, candlestick maker, all of that. And I went through one by one and said, do their customers come to them based on a want or a need? And it ended up only being about 40 businesses out of 2,400 that people went there because they wanted to rather than they had to. And I narrowed it down to three. One was golf professionals, the other was hair and beauty, and the other was builders. So I could have quite easily been involved in hair and beauty. Like, how good would that have been? But I ended up with builders because I just had an affinity with it. I knew lots of them. I understood them. They speak my language. We don't wear suits. We're quite irreverent, and we have a good time. And their customers go to them because they have a passion. They have a desire to do something, to build a house. Whereas you don't call your plumber because you want to. You call your plumber because you have to. So that's kind of how I ended up with the Builders.
That is so interesting. I actually didn't know that. I think that's a fascinating way to choose what you're going to do as a business. That's super clever. I thought you'd been in the construction industry for ages and just naturally fell into it. But that's amazing. But I suppose being an electrician and that experience helped a lot.
Yeah,
early.
And my dad was a builder as well. Like, there's always something deep down that kind of drives your decisions, I think. And when I was little, my dad used to take me to work, and I remember just watching the carpenters, how they could do things so quickly, and it ended up looking so amazing. Or even I remember I remember his name was Mr. Norman. and he had one finger missing on his painting hand, and he was a painter that my dad used. And I just used to sit there and watch him for hours. Like, he'd just be able to do things so quickly and have a beautiful finish and beautiful straight lines and all of that. And I was always amazed at it. And then later on, I like being involved in the industry myself. I just started to get a sense that builders really do contribute so much to everybody's experiences. Like, I think they really are an incredible contributor to society, yet they get labelled as unreliable and too expensive, and they just sort of get treated as peasants. Now, having said that, that's all their fault. Like, that's what we're teaching our members, like the way that you behave and the lack of systems and the lack of professionalism, you get exactly what you deserve. So by helping our guys understand that and turn that around and change their perspective from thinking that the house at the end of the driveway is their product to the quality of the customer's experience is the product. So focus on that, then everything changes, and it makes everybody's life far more enjoyable.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So you chose that as an industry because it's a need for customers, but how was the education around, a want, but the builders themselves, like, has there been a bit of an education piece in, because it's my partner's a plumber and he's got no shortage of work. So that he's the need and the want for him to do personal development and improve his business and that sort of stuff. It's not really there, although he's already good at what he does. So how did you that's an extra bit, which is what you help people with today.
Yeah. And that's totally understandable, but it still comes down to the individual and really what did they go into business for in the first place. And I think that gets lost really, really quickly. Like, I think that the three simple reasons people go into their own business is more time, more money, more meaning. So I think I'm going to have more time because I can choose when to work and when not to and all of that by being the boss. I think I can make more money because I'm smart and I can do better than my employer used to do because I'm smarter than them. And, you know, I can choose what I want to do. I'm completely the master of my own destiny. So I have these thoughts to go and start my own business. Shortly after I start, I'm earning less money than anybody I employ. I'm working twice as much as what I would if I was working for somebody else. And I'm doing stuff I hate because I've got to keep the till ticking over. And all of a sudden we lose sight of what we did it for and what we're doing it for. And what I'm constantly doing with our guys is helping them to understand that your business is nothing more than a platform that will provide you with the time and financial wherewithal to be able to chase down what you want in your life. And we talk a lot about just cause and all of the messages from Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game. And that's been a massive game changer in the mindset of our members, because for years and years and years, I'd been teaching them, I think now, the wrong approach. I've been teaching them a win-lose approach to business because that's what I was taught, you know, by a lot of the gurus back in the day. You know, you've got to be a winner, and if you do that, you're a loser, and all of that sort of stuff. But when you read Simon Sinek's book and you understand that there are finite games and infinite games, and a finite game is a game of footy or a game of darts or a game of chess or whatever it might be, and it's got known players, it's got agreed upon rules and time limits and all of that sort of thing. But an infinite game, and the purpose of a finite game is to win it, but an infinite game, the purpose of it is for the game to continue. And what we don't really realize is life is an infinite game. Relationships are an infinite game. Business is an infinite game. Like, does anyone ever win the relationship challenge? Like, you don't win in a relationship. Your purpose is for the relationship to continue. You don't win in business. Like, if you want to be the best in some area, someone's going to come and knock you off at some stage. So, and the whole shifting the mindset to my purpose is to choose a cause that I want to contribute to, and my purpose is for that to continue on well after I'm pushing up daisies and recruit people into it so it lasts a lot longer than I do. And when you've got that opportunity each day to either take on the challenge of winning or losing, which is out of your control to a certain extent, or having a sense of fulfillment because what I did was contributing to my cause, it just changes everything. Like, your day is significantly different every day. And that's the sort of stuff that we're talking to builders about, believe it or not.
Amazing. And so having kind of experienced and spoken to so many different businesses and people going out into business, what are the biggest mistakes, the biggest unknowns, reasons for failure that you have seen?
Oh, well, it all started, I think, by reading The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If you know, it's a fairly, you know, it's probably a small business Bible. And the fatal assumption is that because I'm good at doing the work, I will be good at running a business that does that work. So if I'm a good hairdresser, I'll be I'll be able to run a great hairdressing salon. If I'm great at baking cakes, I'll be able to have a great bakery. And that, in Michael Gerber's estimations, is the cause of the big majority of business failures, because having a technician who is comfortable doing the technical work, then having to learn all of these things that have nothing to do with the technical work, which are all about running the business and marketing and managing clients and compliance and paperwork and managing money and all that. It's got nothing to do with tuning up the car or cutting the hair or building the house, but it's got everything to do with whether you've got a successful business or not. And so I think the biggest challenge is, if I'm good at building or cutting hair, that's my comfort zone. That's where I go. And I put my head in the sand and I ignore all of this other stuff. And any time I'm under pressure, like if you've got $1 million decision to make Many people will tidy up their desk first before making the decision because I feel in control. I can clean my desk, but I can't make this decision. And so if you're comfortable doing the technical work, but you've got important decisions to make about your business, you'll put them off and you'll give priority to the stuff that you're comfortable about. And that's one of my biggest struggles is getting people to prioritize themselves and working on the business over working in the business.
That's really interesting. So what advice would you give someone who was about to kind of go out on their own, and what would you see as the pros and cons? How would you talk them through it?
Wow, huge question. I think one of the main things is, what are you passionate about? And you've probably heard all of that before, but I just think it's absolutely critical that you do or work in the area where you have passion, because if your focus is on, I can do that, there's a good opportunity there, I can go work in the mines and I can earn a truckload of money, or I can get into this, start this business because there's an opportunity there and I can earn a lot of money. There is always 100% guaranteed there will be challenges. There will be down times. There will be, COVID-19 will hit and things will prevent you from doing things the way you wanted to do it, cause big challenges. And unless you have that passion, if you're only doing it for the money, you will give up far, far earlier than if you have a passion for it. So I think, as weird as it sounds, my number one bit of advice is build a business in an area that you would absolutely work at it, 18 hours a day for nothing.
Yeah, good advice. Yeah, you've got to have that burning passion, fire in your belly for what you're doing, don't you, to get you through the challenging times. So you mentioned a few times that you've had like a business coach and a mentor, and Taki Moore, and now you are that for others in your business. So can you talk us through the value of that? And in your setting up your business initially, how did you because I think it's really interesting what you just touched on. You got to be more than just good at something, because then it's like, okay, you build a business and you get the website done and it's like, oh my God, where are the customers? I thought if I had a website, they would just come. So how were those beginning steps for you in the business that you're now running?
Oh look, it's just been a series of accidents for me, really. It's like I wake up and have these bizarre ideas, like selling life insurance would be a good idea. And then I go and do it to find out, well, it wasn't such a great idea. I didn't enjoy it, apart from we were required to do an hour's worth of training every day of the week for the first year that you were there. So I got to spend the first hour of my day with Ian every day, and it was just an absolute pleasure and a joy. And then the rest of my day, I was driving around doing 500 kilometres a day, sitting in people's lounge rooms and kitchens, talking about life insurance and dealing with people looking at me like I'd just killed their dog or something. Like, talk about a business where nobody wants to talk to you about life insurance. So it was a tough gig. But, after that, things just evolved, and because I fell in love with the personal development side of it, and I heard things like, I think it might have been Stephen Covey, maybe it might have been a quote from him, and it might have been Tony Robbins, I can't remember, but it was like, we teach what we most need to learn. And I thought, I need to learn all of this stuff. I was consuming Tony Robbins books and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and Stephen Covey and all of these amazing people, Wayne Dyer. And I'm going, man, I just need to learn this stuff. And believe it or not, even when I was at the life insurance gig, somehow I ended up down in the conference room at lunchtime running seminars for people who were interested. Like, it was bizarre, and I was just teaching what I needed to learn, and other people fortunately found it interesting, and the sort of the group grew and what have you. And then I went to a time management seminar, and that just blew my mind. I was working sort of 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and within 3 months I'd cut my working day in half, and I was learning all of this stuff. There was so much potential that I wasn't tapping into. So eventually I worked for that business and started up an agency for them down in Tasmania. And I ended up teaching this sort of stuff, and they eventually flew me all around the country. So I was on half a dozen planes a week flying around the country teaching people this time management stuff. And like when we first moved down, this is how bizarre things happen. In Sydney, when I was selling life insurance, I'd bought a course, and part of the course was meeting up like for an hour a night, every Tuesday night, to do this little training session with other people who had bought this course. It had 6 cassettes and a workbook. You remember cassettes? And there was this practice that they insisted on us doing. It's called the dream catcher, and the whole idea was you write down anything that would just be wicked, off the charts, awesome to have, become, experience, accomplish, as long as there were no limits to time, talent, or money. And it's bloody hard. But for adults, it's super hard to do this exercise because we've got that many limitations in our mind. We'll come up with a thought and go, oh, that'd be awesome. And we'll kill that thought up here before it runs down your arm through the pen and onto the paper. And so we have all of these limitations that are controlling us. And this exercise was one of eliminating or chipping away at those limitations. So you're writing down all of these things that you would love to do, but in nowhere in your belief system is it possible. And one of the things, and I don't know why I wrote it down, but I wanted to teach in jails. Right. And I hadn't taught anybody anything at this stage. I'd just been going to seminars and watching these people like Zig Ziglar and whatever up on stage and going, well, wouldn't that be a cool gig? So I'd never talked to anybody, never taught anybody, but I'm writing this sort of stuff down over and over and over in the Dreamcatcher. Maybe a year later, we moved from Sydney back down to Tassie, which is where I came from. And I get a phone call from this person, Kate, I remember her name, from the education unit at the Risdon prison, which is the prison at Hobart, saying, we've heard a lot about you. We'd love you to come and run a course for our pre-release program. So it's for the prisoners who, just before they get let back out again. Would you do that? And for some bizarre reason, I said yes, hung up on the phone and went into an instant panic because I'd never taught anybody anything ever. I had a lot of information, but I'd never done it before. So I don't know why I said yes. But and the silly thing is, and this is how it works, folks, the whole thing was an accident. They called the wrong person.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they didn't mean to call me. They just did. And I went, yeah, when they said, we've heard a lot about you and heard that you do great things. Oh, well, that's wonderful. And would you do this? And I said, yes, of course. And I showed up at the jail, and I worked there part-time for 2.5 years, had Chopper Reed in my class a few times, which is pretty exciting. He was a very, very smart guy before all of the drugs and alcohol fried his brain. But it's amazing how those opportunities show up. And if you can challenge yourself to do that exercise every day, just challenge yourself to put 2 minutes into writing down stuff that you'd like to have. There's nothing wrong with that. Who you want to become, what you'd like to accomplish. But the key to it is you can't believe at any level that it's possible. That's the challenge. So you've got to keep finding stuff that is so ridiculous that you feel a little embarrassed writing it down. That's the challenge. I forgot what the question was, but there's my answer anyway.
No, it's so interesting. There's so much magic in life, you know, and I totally agree. It's just, it comes about in the most extraordinary ways, and it just kind of makes you go, God, there's something else here, you know, there's something else guiding my life, because it's just incredible when you connect the dots and you look back, you just go, that was just magic, you know.
Yeah.
So
and it happens all the time with this dream catcher thing. Like, I ended up working for Tennis Australia for quite a few years, because in my dream catcher one day I just wrote down I'd like to get involved in sport at the elite level, and I didn't know anybody, had no experience, and things a couple of weeks later just started to happen. And I've done coaching with the Tassie state team, the Victorian state cricket team, all of the top tennis players back when I was doing it in Australia. I went on tour with Samantha Stozer overseas. You know, I'm just an electrician from Hobart, and I get a phone call from Samantha Stozer saying, can you come over to Florida and come on tour with me? And I was like, I wonder if this is another one of these wrong numbers.
That's amazing. So interesting hearing you say that it's you got to not believe that it's possible, because a lot of I think that's almost like a trick for your mind, because in
100%.
not believing it's possible and writing it down, you almost get it on the subconscious before you can, because you wipe out the limiting beliefs, which is incredible. And I think that's, as you said, that's what kind of gets in the way and stops us, because the mind then gets confused. But if you
just the opposite of, I mean, you speak to most people at the barbecue or whatever, and they've got opinions, and if you challenge those opinions, they want to fight for what's holding them back. Like they want to fight for their limitations. You know, you can't do that. Like the classic for us with Builders Business Blackbelt is we all of our guys charge for quotes, and I still get people on Facebook and my posts on Facebook accusing me of being a complete idiot, not knowing what I'm talking about. You can't do that. It's impossible. You will go broke. I better tell all of our members then, you know, they better stop doing it immediately. It's just craziness.
Yeah, amazing. And the world needs so many more people like that think outside the box, and, you know, because anything is possible. And I just think that's fascinating, that activity that you just shared, because if you can convince your mind that it is possible, that also works in terms of manifesting. But it's almost like that activity is the opposite, where you kind of cancel out the limiting beliefs, because what you write down you think is so ridiculous, but you'd actually really love to do it.
And I think it prepares you to say yes as well. Like the yes came out of my mouth when I had the request to work in the jail. Like I didn't go, well, should I or shouldn't I? I just, like having done the process, it just prepares you to say yes. The same that happened with the tennis thing. Like I just met the state coach down here in Tassie, and after working with them just for a few weeks, I got a call from the national coach. And he said, we've heard there's stuff going on down there and we want to talk to you. And so they flew me up there, and I had a chat with them, and they said, we're going to put you on a 4-day trial and want you to do this, that, and the other. And based on that, we'll decide what to do. So the 4-day trial worked out really, really well. And then I was working with them for a number of years, and they're just flying me all around the country, working with all of the different tennis bodies, you know, Tennis New South Wales, Tennis West, whatever, working with the coaches, the kids, and the adult players, and the parents, who were the most challenging, the parents. And the funniest thing, I remember doing a session for all the national coach, the national junior coach, all of the state coaches are all there in one room in Melbourne, and I was doing a session for them, and I thought, oh, talk to them about the dream catcher and this, that, and the other. And I didn't even think about it, but I told them the story about, how I wanted to get involved in sport, but had no contacts and no experience and all of this sort of stuff as an example. And the national coach came up to me after I did the session, and he said, so when we had that meeting that first time, you had never coached anybody in sport in relation to anything. And I've gone, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. And he just cacked himself laughing. He thought it was hilarious because, like, the results were there. We got immediate results, and they were phenomenal results, and very, very quickly. So it's like I didn't have anything to worry about, but he just thought it was hilarious that I had the gall to take his call and then fly up to Melbourne and do this with zero experience.
Yeah, and I think, like, as a coach or a mentor, and in that role, it's so refreshing for people to find someone who, the sky's the limit, because you really walk the talk and you believe anything's possible, and that's been part of your story. So I think that's inspiring for people that would sign up for you, because they feel that they can do, or suggest ridiculous things that they would want for themselves and their lives. But I think, the life insurance, like, what fantastic training for you.
Yeah.
And as you were, sharing that you were sitting in people's lounge rooms and the looks on their faces, I got a flashback of, I can really resonate with that. When I was 20, I signed up to what I thought was working for a charity in the paper, but it was one of the marketing companies where they put you out on the streets signing people up to sponsor children, and things like that. And so I went there, and I didn't have any of the stigma attached to that sort of thing. I hadn't really seen much of it around at that stage, at that point in time. And so I just thought, geez, okay, well, it's not the charity, but people look really friendly and they're really pumped here. They were doing their morning hoo-ha and, high energy. And I thought, geez, they're my agent. They look like good fun. Yeah, all right, I'll give this a shot. So it was the most brilliant training, because somehow I wasn't attached to the response from people, whether they said yes or no. I just loved meeting people. So we got to go to different shopping centres every day. We got to have fun with our friends. And in the end, it was like, they do these big conferences and present the top performers. And I was, number one salesperson out of 10,000 people in energy division, charity division. And it was like the biggest joke ever. It was hilarious. Yeah. And then they started putting, people out for me to train, to, sign people up. And I didn't like that, because I felt so bad for these people, because, if you haven't signed someone up on it, it's only commission. Otherwise you don't get paid. And so that kind of made me start thinking about, how does this work? And if I'm getting paid, then, so I had a chat with my boss, and he basically said, oh, if you don't take people out, that's your responsibility now that you've been here for a while. And, and he said, if you don't, we're going to take money off, the sales that you do. And I was like, whoa, this is like, what's going on here? So, but anyway, you just gave me a flashback of that period of my life, because I loved it. It's the best training in talking to people and, meeting different types of people. And if you're not attached to the outcome, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I think that there is so much that we can learn from those sorts of environments. And that's another thing, that if you are closed off to just trying to get the message from whatever is in front of you, you can miss out a lot. Like, there was, and there obviously still is, a stigma to selling Amway. And I got sucked into that at one stage 100 years ago. And I don't have any regrets about it. I didn't sell any Amway, but man, they got some great personal development and great conferences, and I just love showing up. And I still remember things from it. I remember a lady saying, and I still talk to other people about this, that your success is built on your inconvenience, not your convenience. That was a quote from some lady in Amway. And I thought, man, that's so true. To the point where we have a momentum call every day of the week with our builders. And I thought the key here is inconvenience. Like, I've got to have these people get on this inconvenience bandwagon. And so we have a momentum call at 11 a.m. because I thought that was the most inconvenient time for a builder that there was. So we get our guys on a call for 1 hour every day from 11 till 12. And it's super inconvenient. And the big majority of them show up every day because they understand the investment in themselves for that hour a day is going to give them such a massive return in the future compared to banging some nails into some wood for that hour instead. Like, what
Amazing.
are you doing? What are you doing in your moments that are going to give you a return in the future? Is a really good question to ask.
So I know you run your own podcast, and it's amazing to hear about, you know, how you've developed your business and how the philosophy behind it. You've obviously done a lot of learning and growth and all that sort of stuff yourself, so you've created quite a unique business model. Can you just share a bit about all the different aspects of it and how you know, things like those 11 a.m. calls, how you coach people?
Yeah, well, I mean, starting from the start, I suppose how, and again, everything's happened by accident. You just got to remain aware of what's going on with your accidents and see what you can take out of them. And how it is now, our model now is it's just terrific, and it makes you think, well, why didn't I think of that in the first place? Well, you can't. You've got to evolve and learn from the challenges. And how we have it now is, you know, we'll talk to any builder that wants to improve, and we'll point them in the right direction for the effort that they currently want to put in. Whether they want to pay some money or don't want to pay some money, that's entirely up to them. But we can put them on a pathway. But our first program is all about three pillars. And they're basically your own personal effectiveness and mindset, what we call the quality client pathway, which is just such a cool thing that educates your prospects on how to become an amazing client, so everybody wins. And then the third pillar is Profit First by Mike McCallowitz. And that course was originally created for people who would apply for Builders Business Blackbelt, but just weren't quite ready for it, either emotionally or financially. So we had a smaller course that they could go do. But and I can't remember the sequence of events, but anyway, what ended up happening is we stopped doing that. You can either go to Black Belt or you can go to this course called Blueprint. And we just made everyone go through Blueprint. And it's a 12-week course, and it builds the foundation of these three pillars. And what I noticed was when the people went through the 12-week course, and our only focus was those three things, I will say to them in our live Q&As each week, I will not speak to you about marketing because that's not in this course. I won't speak to you about how to manage a team or leadership. That's not in the course. The three things, that is it. And I get them just to focus on those three things. And then the people who are sort of grow into a position where they're relevant or in the right space to join Black Belt, they then join Black Belt. And I just noticed that the speed of implementation and change was just off the charts. The people that built the foundations and then went into the bigger course, they're smashing the people as far as speed and results. The people that went straight into Black Belt, because you go, like, there's so much in Black Belt, you go, oh, we do a bit of that and do a bit of that. And there's no focus. They're not building the foundation, to use a builder's metaphor. You know, you build that foundation, then you can go and do the sexy stuff. But the sexy stuff doesn't work until and unless you've got the foundation built. So that's how we basically do it now. Is the first thing is, most builders are busy. The very first thing we teach them to do is how to become significantly more effective, get more focus on what their priorities are, so they feel like they get significantly more done. And it's a very common conversation, 5 or 6 weeks into the program, people go, I'm getting what I used to get done in a day. I'm finishing it by 11 or 12 o'clock in the day, and I just feel guilty. Like, it's the most bizarre conversation I have, but it's regular. Like, I have it with people regularly, and I say, so what you're telling me is that you are getting just as much done as what you used to, but you're now getting it done in a half or a third of the time that you used to, and you feel bad about it. And they go, yep. And there's nothing I can do about it, they say. Like, I just feel guilty. They even laugh when I present it like that, and they go, yeah. But their truth is that they feel guilty because they've hypnotized themselves into believing that working long hours and working hard is the way forward to success, and it's just not. Like, you must take time to invest into the efficiency and the effectiveness of this thing. Like, you've just got to. One of the things that we used to teach years and years ago, in fact, when we first started our business, we had a 3.5 hour seminar, and we just used to run 2 of those a month, and people just used to pay and turn up to this live seminar. And some people would just come month after month after month. I think 24 sessions in a row was about the longest. And it was exactly the same. And it was all about your input determines your output. And the jokes and the punchlines were exactly the same in the same place each time. And people would sit there and politely laugh at the jokes in the right spots. But they kept coming back because they understood that I've got to hang around with people like this. I've got to change my input, because if I change what goes in here, everything else is influenced. And one of the laws was the law of never-ending improvement we used to talk about, and it was this, all we used to say is you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. And that's the message that we're always trying to get through to our members as well. There is no status quo. You know, if your business is going well now, so what? Unless you are improving, your business won't. And if your business isn't improving, it will start to slide backwards, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. And the same happens with us. We're either growing or we're dying, and there are only 2 choices. And if you choose not to do what you need to do to grow, you will be going backwards. End of story.
So interesting. I've got kind of 2 last questions and I'm trying to work out how to phrase this one, but people that have kind of gone to trade school, got into a trade, do you kind of see that they're not as into personal development as much? I know, like, what you're offering is kind of business support, but it's also very much mindset, that sort of thing, and that might be quite foreign to people that choose that path. So how do they come to you looking for that, or do they more come to you looking for, as you were saying before, more time to improve their business, and that just comes with it?
I think the initial motivation would be to just improve their business, and it's a little bit like the time management seminars we used to do. All of the advertising was, how to get more time, how to save time, all of that sort of stuff, which is, it's the biggest lie that there is. I mean, it's just a furphy. You can't save time, speed it up, slow it down in a jar for later. You just can't do it. Time is some construct that somebody who had nothing better to do came up with. Like, it's about choice. It's our having a choice, then another choice, then another. That's what our moments are just choices, and the choices that we make determine what, how things turn out. So when these people saying I'm doing things in half the time, they're just making better choices, and they're not doing a whole lot of stuff that was a complete waste of effort. And so I think most people come to us because yeah, they want to learn how to charge for quotes, or find better quality customers or whatever. So they want to do things to change their business. But what they find out when they get here, I think for the most part, is all of that change in any of the areas that they want to change their business, it all comes back to their thoughts and their beliefs around that part of their business. And if they believe that good help's hard to find, they find it really hard to find people. But if they believe, anyone with a great attitude can learn this, they end up with great teams, because they attract people with great attitudes that are open and want to learn. So I think they turn up for the material benefit, but they end up understanding that there's more to it than that, and they really, really prefer and appreciate the effort that we put into the personal side of things and the mindset.
Can you give us an inspiring example that has, inspired you, of an unlikely success of someone that's come through your programs and just gone and really grown the business?
The crazy example that came to my mind is somebody that isn't running a great successful business right now from a financial point of view, and he's not with, when I say he's not with us, he's still alive, he's just not in the program. And his name is Scott Carson, and if you want to look out for him, he's running this thing called the Business of Smiles. And when he came to see us, he was with a business partner, and they were pool builders. So they weren't builders, but they built pools. And he was the classic, loves drinking beer and like full of energy and all of that sort of stuff, and just wouldn't take a backward step. When I first met him, the weekend before, he had done like a half marathon, and I said, "Oh, did you train for that?" And he said, "Oh, not really, And I sort of was talking to him about his cool down. He said, "Oh, we had a couple of Carlton drafts or something afterwards. That was the cool down." And his business partner told me he was in that bad a shape that the week or the couple of days before, that he was in the hole where they were building the swimming pool and he couldn't get out, and they had to reach in with an excavator and get him out. Like, he was that bad. But this guy has just taken on all of this mindset stuff. He's gone out and sought out other mentors and other information, and now his whole life, like he I don't know how many lives he saves a week, but he speaks to particularly guys who are contemplating suicide and talks them down off the ledge all the time. I don't know how he does it. They're currently planning to run from Sydney. Him and another guy are going to run from Sydney to Melbourne to raise money and awareness for this. And they're selling socks. They got these socks with smiley faces on them, and that is the example that comes to mind that's inspirational, because it's got nothing to do with building, and in my mind, building has nothing to do with building either. It has to do with creating environments for families to grow up in, to create great memories, and the design and how a house functions and all of that sort of stuff has got so much to do with how well a family works out. And I don't even know that builders know how much, and designers know how much they contribute to what's going on these days. So, to me, I think very deeply about this. It's not just about building a better building business. I realise that's on the pathway to just cause and all of that sort of stuff. So we start off with what we need to start off with, and we help people build better businesses. But the reality is, what I'm really trying to do is help people build a much better platform, so they've got more time and more money to contribute to things that they really care about. And like, they could be doing anything. They don't have to be builders.
Unreal. I was going to ask you what's the legacy that you want to leave, but I think that's the that's the answer. And it's really refreshing to chat to you, Mick, and hear that you do things differently, you think differently and outside the box, which I think the world needs at the moment, and about empowering people to live their best lives, which is the goal at the end of the day. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom. Is there anything else that you wanted to share that we haven't covered?
Oh, only a million things. Like, I could talk underwater with a mouthful of rocks for 7 hours if you'd want, but it's like there's so much that we could talk about. But I just think that if people, if they did the one thing, it would be getting into that dream catcher thing that we talked about. Because I just think, I can't tell people where they should go or what they should do. That needs to be for them to discover. And how they do that is just start to chip away at the self-imposed limitations that we have in our mind. That little exercise, a dream catcher, where you write stuff down with no limits, is the best exercise I've ever come across for doing that, where you step into an environment where absolutely anything is possible just for a few moments each day at the start of your day. And then you step back out into your reality, but you have a slightly different perception of your reality. And then you do it again the next day and again the next day and again the next day. And, I guess from a scientific point of view, it arcs up the reticular activating system in your brain, and you just start to see opportunities that have been in front of your face the whole time, but you just couldn't see them. And you prepare yourself to say yes to them, and things just get better. Like the final example that came to mind about that was, I was sitting watching V8 supercars one day, which I really enjoy. I like the technology of it. And I just said to my wife, Julie, I wouldn't mind getting involved in V8 supercars. That's all I said. And a couple of days later, I went to my gym, and the owner of the gym was standing at the counter when I walked in, and he handed me a piece of paper, and he said, we just had a phone call from some dude who's looking for a performance coach. And he gave me the piece of paper with the number on it. I said, what does he do? And he said, he drives a V8 supercar. And a couple of weeks later, I was at Bathurst, in the sheds with the thing on, getting driven around the track, and just amazing. You just got to get this out of the way and then see what happens.
And amazing, as you said, open to the magic, open to it and aware of it. And as you mentioned before, which I thought was hilarious, because it's almost the more random things are, the more you pay attention to them, because they're happening for a reason. And I love that. And I love your examples. How inspiring, and what a great reminder. Thanks a million, Mick. I've loved having you. Thanks for sharing all your wisdom.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to our Inspiring Humans podcast, and I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any inspiring human in mind that you would like to nominate, please reach out and let us know. Also, you're very welcome to become part of our Facebook group called Inspiring Humans, where you can connect with incredible people from around the globe. Thirdly, if you are interested in being part of a global network, we have an incredible community at 7continentscouncil.com, where we hold events, programs, and many different initiatives that you can be involved in. Thank you, and see you again soon.